Good to talk to you again, Matt. You're not very happy with your own government's ban on Australians returning from India. I mean, I think it's unconscionable that a government would deny the re-entry of its own citizens. There's now a legal challenge in train. A 73-year-old Gary Newman, who's travelled to India about a year ago, is challenging the government in court. What do you think the chances are of his success?
Well, I don't know, Chris. I'm not a legal expert in this area, but I don't think it's morally the right thing to do to lock out our own countrymen. We like to pride ourselves on mateship in this country, and if mateship is going to mean anything, it does mean helping out your mates, even sometimes when that might mean sacrifice from yourself. There's no doubt that if we brought Australians from India back to Australia, there would be risks to us in doing that. I think they'd be manageable, and we could have special quarantine arrangements in place perhaps for them. But almost regardless of that, we've got Australians over there in dire need, and we should be pulling all stops out to help them, just as we helped Australians that were stuck in Wuhan at the start of this crisis. I worry, Chris, that the coronavirus has corroded a lot of our basic humanity here in perspective and balance on different issues. At the start of this, as I said, we're willing to send a plane over to get people from Wuhan, bring them back, even before we had quarantine, before we really knew what the virus was about. But now it's just there's put the walls up. The coronavirus is the most important thing, almost to the exclusion of any other risks or priorities in life.
Look, I agree. It just worries me, the selfishness and hard-heartedness of not just the government on this, but of the population that seems to support it, because we had higher infection rates in the UK and the US and Europe over their winter than you're having in India now. That's not to downplay the horror in India, and it'll probably get worse because of their difficulties, their less developed status and the rest of it. But why do we not block off the return of Australians from the US and Europe, yet we block the return of people from India?
I don't know, Chris, and look, I don't have all that data in front of me, and to compare the US, UK or India. I think in the case of India, there's been a level of scare tactics played by the media and how it's been reported. No doubt that the Indian situation is very, very dire. But as you say, is the actual virus more dire than strains that have spread in other countries? That's not clear. Obviously, one of the big issues in India is their lack of modern health services in many areas of their country. That's not something we have an issue with. We have adequate hospital services. We're able to build up our ventilators and other ICU equipment at the start of the crisis. So, I mean, I just think we can manage these risks. I also think there's a level of paranoia about a hotel quarantine. Yep, it's not perfect. There have been issues, but overall, we've managed this very, very well. And yes, we could improve that and get better at it. But I wish we'd focus on doing that while we can still help out our fellow Australians that are clearly in very tough circumstances. I've spoken to a lot of Australian Indians in the last 48 hours since I've called for us to do this, and there are some heartbreaking stories of mums being separated from young children. And what are they going to do? They don't know when they're going to come home. We should be helping those sort of people out.
And it's the least competent states that are generating the most hysteria and demanding that Canberra put up the walls. Most Australians, 2/3 of them who have come back, have come through New South Wales, where of course there's been cross-infections. You're going to get them. They've contained them without lockdowns, and they're happy to bring more people in. But it's states like Victoria that keep stuffing up hotel quarantine that want to pass the buck and just keep people out.
It's not just the hotel quarantine, it's that tracking and tracing as well. That's almost more important. Because as you say, there's going to be outbreaks from time to time in any system, any quarantine system. But if you can track them, trace them and deal with them quickly, as New South Wales seems to have been able to do from the get-go, then it's not the wider issue. We can manage it.
I just want to briefly raise an industry that's big in your area, and you had the PM up there this week focusing on the beef industry and exporting of beef. It's not very fashionable at the moment. The climate change activists are now targeting beef. Is there still plenty of market for Australian beef?
Well, it's pretty fashionable up here, Chris, and I think most Australians continue to enjoy a nice steak at dinner time. I don't think the industry has too much issue with consumer demand. There's great demand for our product. And if you just saw that in the crisis, you remember those photos where at the start of the pandemic, all the meat was gone from the shelves except for the tofu and the plant-based protein. They were still stocked. People would walk past those even though there's nothing else on the shelf. So the consumers speak there. And look, I don't know if you've seen, Chris, but the CSIRO this week has come out saying that we should eat insects. And I'm not exaggerating this. They've put a post on Facebook saying that the CSIRO claims we should eat insects because they are better for the environment and reduce greenhouse gases more. Well, my question to CSIRO is, you go first. You go first. Report back to us what it's like. Produce a recipe book of all the different ways you prepare and cook insects. Maybe suggest to us the different types of wines that go with different types of bugs. And we'll see if Bug Week next year outranks Beef Week this year in popularity, because it's gone off here in Rocky. It's fantastic. We've had record crowds. Our beef industry is going really, really well because there's lots of demand for high quality protein all around the world.
That's Beef Week. We'll cross back to you in about a month for Lager and Locust Week. It should be great.
Yeah, one of those might attract me more than the other.
Thanks for joining us, Matt. Appreciate it.
You too, Chris. Have a good one, mate.
Queensland Senator Matt Canavan there from Rocky. Insects, that's what they want us to eat next, eh?